Peacemaker Season 2 recently came to its conclusion and people are not happy. And mainly this is all due to the finale of Peacemaker being extremely rushed, filled with too many montage sequences, and feeling overall just like a setup for the follow-up Superman movie that's supposed to come out in 2027. And all of those criticisms would be 100% valid. But I don't think that this finale in turn ruined the entire season of Peacemaker like a lot of people would have you believe. I've seen many people completely switch up on this season after enjoying the first 7 episodes. They saw the last episode and went, "No!" And of course you had the Snyder cultists coming out of the woodworks being like, see, we tried to warn y'all that the DCU was terrible from the start, but now your eyes are open because of this bad finale. We wanted to warn you, bring back the DCEU, which to that I have to say,
stop it. Get some help.
Because while I do agree that the finale to Peacemaker isn't good, I do not believe it ruins this season at all. And that's mainly because I feel like this season of Peacemaker is broken up into 2 parts. That being Peacemaker Season 2 in episodes 1 through 7, and then Peacemaker Season 3 in the final episode of the season. Now let me explain. When I was watching Season 2, I felt that the story came to a natural conclusion at the end of episode 7, and I was curious as to what the hell they were going to do with episode 8. And after finishing episode 8, I felt like they took an entire plot line for an entire separate season of Peacemaker and crunched it down into a singular episode, because the end of that potential 3rd season would be the setup for the Man of Tomorrow movie coming out in 2027. And I really don't like that, because nothing in episode 8 of season 2 felt like it was out of character. Everything that we saw felt like the natural progression of everything that was built up through the previous 7 episodes in the season. Chris separating himself completely from the 11th Street kids because he feels like he destroys everything he touches, and needing to have a therapy session with all of his friends to realize that he's not a terrible person, that all of the bad things that happened to him were just because he didn't listen to his instincts. That was a phenomenal moment that Adebayo and Chris had. But that being said, it happens way too fast. And then in regards to everything else in the episode, with Harcourt, Economos, Tim Meadows, and Bordeaux leaving Argus and helping Adebayo start Checkmate, and all the 11th Street kids feeling better, unifying, and creating this brand new organization that's going to help the world. All of that is shown to us through montage sequences, and that is just not how you do things. I understand that you wanted the end of the season to lead into Man of Tomorrow, but you really should have just squeezed in a 3rd season of Peacemaker between now and when Man of Tomorrow was going to come out, or move Man of Tomorrow back so that you could fit in a 3rd season, so that would lead into that more fluidly. And it just really sucks that we had to have this forced ending into the season, because the rest of the season is really good. Sure, it still has flaws like the Nazi world. The Nazi world isn't really fleshed out or explored all that deeply. I've seen a lot of people, mainly like Nando V Movies, bringing up the fact that the Nazi world feels very unnecessary, and that it could have just been an alternate version of Earth where everyone acted slightly differently and it wouldn't really change the story. And I completely agree with that. I love the twist of it being Earth X. I think that's a really cool nod to the comics, but it didn't really do anything because we don't explore any of the negative aspects of it being Earth X, outside of the one scene where Adebayo is chased down by a bunch of evil Nazis. That seems redundant because a Nazi in it of itself is evil. Anyway, my point is, like, there are camps on that universe where every person of color is enslaved and forced to do labor. Vigilante is a part of an organization that is fighting back doing this. And we have a really interesting conversation brought up when we learn that Blue Dragon isn't racist in this universe. And he talks about how he fights the good fight, but he's not doing it in the deep-rooted way of trying to change his world. He's just stopping criminals. That is a very intriguing and thought-provoking moment, because it's like, well, there are people in real life that think of themselves as good people. They'll stand up for injustices that they see in front of them, but at the end of the day, they're not willing to put a foot forward and fight for greater world change. That's an interesting conversation that the show could have brought up, but it's ended very briefly when Vigilante kills him. And I feel like that scene of itself is indicative of the entire season of Peacemaker Season 2. is that it's got a lot of great ideas. It executes it very well, but then some crazy nonsense comes in and cuts it short, which sucks because I feel like if they would have just let this simmer instead of trying to flambe everything instantaneously, we could have had something really special, and Peacemaker could have been a phenomenal 3-season show that then leads into a wider perspective of the DCU, as opposed to people now completely switching up and hating this season. Like, I have never seen a switch up this ferocious in my entire life. Everyone was like, yo, Peacemaker is goated. I'm loving season 2. I'm feeling the whole twist with the Nazi vibe going on. James Gunn is cooking. He never misses a shot. And then episode 8 came out and everybody's like, yo, fuck the DCU. The gun misfired. This is crazy. How could you ruin this show? And I'm like, whoa, relax. It's not that bad. It's one bad episode. I don't think an eighth of a show being terrible ruins everything else about the show. Especially since, again, I don't think anything in that finale was really off the cuff from what we were building up to. It's just a condensed version of it. But yeah, those are my brief thoughts on Peacemaker Season 2. Overall, episodes 1 through 7, very good, have a lot of emotional moments. My personal favorite scene out of those moments is when Chris completely breaks down when he sees all of his friends about to kill his alternate universe brother. That scene is just, chef's kiss. But final episode really needed to just be an entire season of itself and stretch it out. Like, we could have replaced this final episode. We could have moved episode 7 to episode 8 and then had episode 7 explore more of the Nazi world to give more of a satisfying payoff to it being Earth X. But it is what it is. And I'm hoping this problem doesn't persist with the future DCU TV series, because we're going to have Lanterns coming out very soon, and I really do not want that to happen. Now, obviously, James Gunn did make Creature Commandos. This didn't really have the same problem that Peacemaker does, but Creature Commandos doesn't really, like, try to flow directly into other things. Like, yeah, sure, Rick Flag Sr. did come from Creature Commandos into Superman and Peacemaker, but you don't really need to watch that, and it doesn't really have the same level of oomph that this does. Like, Salvation the Planet in this season is probably going to have a significant impact on what's going to happen in a bunch of other things in DCU, but Creature Commandos just introduced a character that we saw in other projects, which isn't really that insane. I just really don't want Lanterns to have the same effect that Peacemaker Season 2 does, because I love Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, and I really want that show to be fire, especially because the only other Green Lantern piece of media that we have in live action is the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie, and that movie still gets clowned on to this day. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's how I feel about Peacemaker Season 2. Episodes 1 through 7, fire. Episode 8 should have been an entire season. So let me know how you feel about Peacemaker down below. If you loved it, if you hated it, if you have complex feelings about the season like I do, I'm curious to know. So without further ado, I'm the Innocent Villain. Remember, folks, you're innocent until proven villainous, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.